Oh, here's what those stickers. Or we like. All right, welcome everybody. Tonight's Tuesday, November 14th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. here at the Columbus Metropolitan Library Hilltop Branch. And this is our full commission meeting of the Greater Hilltop Area Commission. I'm going to call the meeting to order. And I'm going to ask our Secretary Joe if you could take roll.
Yes, starting with Chair Fagan,
I'm here.
Vice Chair Reese Bryant.
Victoria, I've had a long day.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank
I'm
you.
here.
And then moving from my left, Commissioner Klein,
I'm here.
our President, Commissioner Stryker. Here. Maddox, here. White. Here. Moore.
Present.
Kepler.
Here.
Bruno.
Here.
Axton.
Here.
Did I miss anybody? So Simon Davis, Simon Dallas, Kayla Davis, Hannah Kiplet, and Rachel Wenning are currently not present. We do meet more in those simple majority.
Thank you. And all four commissioners that aren't here did email me to talk about why they couldn't be here tonight. So, all right, thanks. So moving on, so let's review the agenda. Everybody received electronically. I don't have paper copies, but I'm just going to ask if there's any additions, deletions of agenda items at this point. Anybody want to have anything they'd like to add or delete? They do have a small section in announcements. I think I'm just going to place it there just to talk about Songs on Sullivan, kind of a event that's been happening over the last couple of years, and I'm probably going to put something up to a vote just to make sure that, and I'll talk about their doing announcements if it's okay. So that's just an item I'd like that. I'll be hearing none. I'm going to move ahead with approving the agenda as it is. Joe, our secretary, sent out minutes from our previous meeting in October. Has everybody had a chance to review those? Any edits, comments, suggestions? As always, they look great. Really appreciate it. So moving forward, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes of our last meeting. All those in favor? Anybody opposed? Right, moved. Moving on to our City of Columbus staff reports. I don't know if Sergeant Brophy is here, but how are you? I'm not gonna be able to make it. All right, Officer Cody, do you have anything you'd like to say that night? Okay, no worries. Glad you're here. Sure. So he's not gonna be able to make it tonight. And I know that Zach Gwynn, our zone attorney, Franklinton's having their area commission meeting tonight also, so he's not gonna be able to make it. Don't know if he left any word with Avery, who is next on the agenda from City Council. She's a legislative analyst that often attends our meetings, but I think she's trying to sneak in Franklinton and then come down and visit us. So we may just move her here a little bit when she comes to see us. So this agenda. Next up is from our Department of Neighborhoods, Lola BC. Lola BC is our West Side Neighborhood Liaison, and she's going to mic up. It sounds like you've got some announcements and things to share with us.
There we go. Good evening, commissioners. Good evening, everyone. Not too many announcements tonight. Just wanted to I just wanted to state a reminder for the final area commission training of the year. It will be a planning training. It is set for November 29th at 6 p.m. It will be in person. We are limiting it to around one person per commission. And as far as I know, no one from the Greater Hilltop Area Commission has reached out to me to RSVP. So if anyone is interested, please let Chair Fagan know so that way we can get you on the list. And please do so as soon as possible. So I will say the planning training is a little different than what it's been in the past. It's much more in-depth. There will be case studies. I highly recommend, if you haven't taken a training in the past, or even if you have, to try and do so. If not this year, I know they'll be having more next year as well. And several of those trainings will be open to the public. So, and community residents, I encourage you to keep in contact with me for the dates for next year to attend those as well. Next, the community or the Neighborhood Best Practices Conference is set for December 2nd. That's a Saturday, and that will be at Columbus State from 9 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Admission is free, but registration is required. The deadline to register is November 28th. Dr. Roberts who's the Columbus Public Health Commissioner, will be the keynote speaker, and the theme for this year is Stronger Together, Building Healthy, Equitable, and Resilient Neighborhoods. So if you need the link to register, it was sent out in this week's bulletin, but I will continue to send it out leading up to the conference. And I just wanted to say thank you to the commission, or to all of you. So today is actually my 1 year anniversary for. I would like to say that it's been a pleasure getting to know all of you and working with you so far. Even though I grew up here, I feel like I've learned so much more about this community, and it's really been a pleasure working with you. I hope to continue working with you in 2024 and beyond. For those of you that are rolling off, that won't be here with us next year in this capacity, thank you so much for your service. Really appreciate you taking the time. I know we ask a lot of you as commissioners, but I really do value and appreciate all the work that you've done for your community. And even though we're not connected as in the commission capacity, I'm still your liaison. So please reach out to me if anything. And yeah, it's been a pleasure. So thank you so much. So that's all I have for you.
Where is the final training being held again?
Oh no, not Columbus State. It's at the Coleman Building.
Oh my God, thank you.
Thank you.
I could have guessed that, but thank you very much.
All right. Any other questions?
Thank you. So also from our Department of Neighborhoods, Nick Plock is here tonight. Nick has some updates for us, some talk that he wants to do. Come on up there. Our neighborhood program specialist representing Envision Hilltop. Just a matter of fact, James White actually brought some hard copies of the Envision Hilltop plan that he had in his garage. If anybody is interested in a physical hard copy, you can download this from the website, but here's some.
These are valuable.
These are valuable. I mean,
I'm out. So
we're offering up a couple, right? Right, James? There's a couple to be had, right?
Yeah, I've got
There's one right here.
3 if I can figure out why this one says reference copy on it.
Ooh.
And it's not. Yeah,
You should take down with it.
You can access the plan on envisionhilltop.com as well, if you're ever interested. I have like executive summary copies as well, so if you ever reach out to me, my contact information is on that website. Happy to get that hard copy for folks as well. So they're just really expensive to print, so it's not good to them. But if people really want a copy, I can work on get full copies as well. So I'm Nick Plock. I work for the City of Columbus Department of Neighborhoods, specifically on our community planning team, and I assist with the implementation of the Envision Hilltop plan. I'll be brief in my updates. Next advisory committee meeting is going to be here at the library from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on December 8th. I am planning to make that a hybrid meeting. So Josh, in my drafts, I have an email to you and Dan requesting use of the OWL if possible. So look for that. But we'll try to host that hybrid. We'll have presentations from a few different folks. I'm still waiting for confirmation. So agenda will be to come. Please feel free to reach out to me directly if you'd like to attend. Open to the public. More than welcome to have anybody there. The next subcommittee meeting for the home subcommittee will be this Thursday. They're doing a canvas in the neighborhood, so they like to kind of alternate every other month, and they do canvases every other month. So they try to hand out information about resources for folks, predatory home buying information for folks. So they'll be meeting in Westgate Park at 10 a.m. on this Thursday. And Ashley Montana is the chair of that group. She'd be more than happy to share out information, and they're always happy to accept more folks to assist with the. So the place and people Multiple subcommittees are to be determined on their next dates. I haven't seen anything come out from them, but I have been working with our website host to try to get information about all of the advisory committee and subcommittee stuff and the chairs of each of those, the contact information, and it's all that onto the website. So hopefully we'll have that within the next month or two. But happy to answer any questions that anyone has for me. And if not, I'm happy to send along information to Dan if folks ever want to reach out, get together, and get coffee. That's it.
Thank you, Nick.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yeah. So that wraps up our city Columbus staff reports. And again, if Zach Winter, Avery Townsend make it back here, I'm just going to give them the floor. So on to announcements. The way this works is if any commissioners have announcements, we'll just start there. And if anybody here has an announcement they'd like to share with the group, we could do that. So any announcements, commissioners? I'm hearing none. Any announcements from anybody here with us tonight? Any events coming up? Any things you want to give reminders of? Anything that you'd like to share?
I will very quickly.
You would? Okay.
Okay, OLABC sent out a number of resources that are gonna be coming up for Thanksgiving food pickup spots throughout the neighborhood, throughout the west side. I'll be sharing a number of those on our Facebook page. Please share with neighbors, friends, anyone who might benefit from those.
Great, thank you. Thank you, very good. Let's move on to our presentation tonight. So we've been waiting a couple of months. Zach Sunderland's been really patient to get on the agenda here. Zach is with CODA, and he wanted to give us some updates on the Linkus West Broad Bus Rapid Transit Project. And so he, in the next 15 minutes or so, has a presentation for us, an opportunity to see his presentation, ask some questions. So Zach, are you mic'd up? You ready to go?
Yeah, can you hear me? Good. Got to turn it on.
A little bit closer.
On the box, top of the box.
No? Yeah, okay. Good. All right, great. So as Dan said, my name is Zach Sunderland. I'm with CODA Project Manager, and I'm here alongside Mindy Justice and Roy McGinnis from the City of Columbus. Mindy is our consultant, part of our engagement team on the corridor. So really, the first part of this presentation is just going to give you a brief overview of the Linkus initiative. And then the second part will be more specifically about the West Broad Street project, which goes through Greater Hilltop. So again, Zach Sunderland, this is actually an older slide. So again, Roy McGinnis with the City of Columbus, and then Mindy Justice is joining me here. All right, yeah, we can go next slide there. So before I dive in really to this one, the next one, sorry. Really talk about how the formation of the Linkus initiative. So about 10 years ago, MORPC, the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, looked at our region to see that 1 million more people were going to be moving to Central Ohio. So that was back in 2014. The number was originally 3 million. It's been recently increased to 3.15 million with recent investments like Intel moving into the region, which makes about from today to 2050 about 750,000 more people moving into our region. In 2017, CODA really wanted to look at what our existing network was back in 2017, but also wanted to look at what our service could look like in the year 2050. So we had a vision plan called the Next Gen, which really identified additional lines, new services, on-demand services, frequency improvements to our existing routes, and most importantly to the Linkus initiative that identified 14 corridors that are warranted for additional investment in rapid transit. Each one of those 14 corridors were screened for mode. So we have commuter rail, streetcar, light rail, and bus rapid transit. The majority of them were identified as feasible for bus rapid transit, and one of those corridors being the West Broad corridor. And then in 2019, MORPC wanted to look at the amount of people that were moving into the region and wanted to look at how we would grow as a region. So instead of growing further and further out to surrounding counties, looking at focusing that growth along key corridors, combining the mobility investments and transit investments with our growth patterns. So it was a model called Insight 2050 Corridor Concepts. There were 5 corridors that were modeled, and one of those corridors being West Broad, really looking at the land use, looking at those growth opportunities to happen, but also overlapping, transit investments along those corridors. And then in 2020, the Link Us Initiative formed, which is really a partnership between CODA, the City of Columbus, Morpsey, and Franklin County. And while the previous 3 studies were really studies, the Link Us Initiative is really about implementation and moving these concepts forward. So, I talked about the growth. So why Link Us? 3.15 million people, so about 750,000 more people in the next 3 decades. We're also looking at affordability. So, read the slide there. Housing prices have increased 32% since the beginning of the pandemic, and 16% in 2022 alone. But when you add in people's transportation costs, which can account for 12,000, 13,000, depending on if you have a car payment, gas prices, insurance, car repairs, housing, and transportation costs make a large part of people's expenses. So less money to spend on other things like healthcare and food. So really looking at trying to address this affordability challenges. Additionally, Link Us Initiative looking to address some of the opportunity gaps. So, as a county, depending on where you live or grow up, your opportunities could look differently depending on that location. And really, part of Link Us initiatives, we want to provide access to those areas that have historically had less opportunities. So again, combining those mobility investments with our growth patterns, creating more walkable communities, and ultimately increased opportunities for all. So, kind of the same thing, combining those, looking at creating faster, more reliable public transportation, but also focusing on how people get around without owning a car. So whether that's biking around or even walking around, and just making it safe for people to get around. So focusing specifically on the West Broad corridor, this is a 9.3 mile stretch from downtown Columbus through Franklinton, Greater Hilltop, Prairie Township, Franklin Township. So really looking at, right now we have our line 10 today that operates a part of CODA, but really looking at building upon those services that we have today. So here you can see the West Broad corridor. So again, from downtown off Prairie Township. The dots on the map represent nodes of activity and represents station locations. So we're looking at about 17 different station locations, which is if you ride CODA today, line 10, we have probably 40 different stops along this stretch. The purpose of this is really reducing those amount of stops, facilitating those boarding to lines at key locations where we have high ridership. So, particularly in the Greater Hilltop area, you can see station locations at Westgate, Egg, Eureka, and Whitethorn as, generally spaced about half a mile apart to really reduce the travel time and increase the speeds of transit. And also on this map, you can see the solid line represents dedicated lanes for transit, which I'll get into in a couple of slides. And then the dashed line represents areas where we would remain in mixed traffic, as similar to what we do today. Okay, go next slide. And obviously, the line 10 today is one of our highest ridership routes. That's why West Broad has been identified throughout the years as a key corridor needing additional investment. I don't have to tell you this, you probably know most of the destinations and activity centers along the corridor, connecting downtown, all the activities down there, all the recent investments in the Franklinton and Scioto Peninsula, including COSI, Veterans Memorial, obviously going through the key business district in Greater Hilltop, connecting Doctors West, and then extending the line further than what we do today. So right now our end of the line is Westwood Boulevard, which is Hilliard Room on the south of Broad, north of Hilliard Room Road. Extending that just a half a mile further, Rockwood Crossing Avenue. That's where that curve is today in Prairie Township. So really providing those connections where people can get to that with using transit. So right now, about half of the corridor is identified as dedicated lanes, looking at 17 stations, really connecting downtown with a lot of jobs and future job projections, as well as along the corridor itself. So when we talk about bus rapid transit, I really want to emphasize that this is different than what we have today. So you can see some of these features that you don't see today in Central Ohio. And if you're familiar with Cleveland's Helpline, they have a service that began, I think, in 2008, been pretty successful. And then also Indianapolis rolled out their red line, I think, in 2019. But also there's other cities that are beginning to invest in bus rapid transit. One of the biggest items that make bus rapid transit premier is the use of the dedicated right-of-way. So again, making it more reliable, so when people are going out to their station, they can expect the vehicles to arrive on time. Today, the buses have to travel with every other car, so if there's traffic, if there's construction, they often, can be 10 minutes late or even more sometimes, depending on that. So really just improving that travel time, making it more reliable. Also, looking at having off-board fare collection. So instead of people all boarding on the front door and waiting in a single file line, having that activity occur at stations ahead of the boarding process. So then passengers can board any of the doors instead of having to wait in a single line. Today, if you board line 10, at 4 o'clock, head west, there could be 20 people in line. That could take several minutes to board. And also looking at level boarding, so people with wheelchairs can simply just roll right on from the stations, similar to what you see at like a light rail station. Today, if you're not familiar, when there's a wheelchair, we have to deploy a ramp on the front door, and then that can take minutes, and that can really add into people's travel time. And also people with bikes can simply store them on the vehicles and roll them on. Today we have 2 racks on each bus. When that's full, you're often, you have nowhere to store the bikes because our policy doesn't really have enough room for the bikes on the vehicles. But with this, we're looking at having larger vehicles. So having 60-foot articulated buses, which is larger than what we have today. Our largest vehicle in our fleet right now is 40 feet. It's really increasing that capacity with with this growth. And we already know that the line 10 is one of our highest ridership routes. Also looking at signal priority. So, when a buses are approaching an intersection with 40 to 60 people, it has a priority to punch through that intersection instead of waiting there and stopping at each of those red lights. Enhanced stations, which I'll get into a little bit more detail. So right now, we have 3,000 bus stops in our network, often with just a pole in the ground or even a shelter if ridership is warranted. We're really looking at creating stations where where people can get to in a much safer way and create a better waiting environment. And then clean energy. So, CODA's exploring, we have 10 battery electric buses now, and as part of these vehicles, looking at extending that into our bus rapid transit lines. So this is a continuation to what I just said. So articulated vehicles, you have that bendy part in the middle, again, just creating additional capacity on the vehicles themselves. And then the right image just shows someone with a bicycle can simply just roll right on and store that bike on the vehicle with you. So early in the project, before in our pre-project development phase, really looked at what made the most sense for our dedicated right-of-way or for our guideway. So majority of the hilltop is identified as the image on the right. So median dedicated bus rapid transit lane. So really looking at repurposing the center lane dedicated for transit. And then some of our areas further out, like in Prairie Township and Franklin Township, still have that mixed flow concept on the left, which is similar to what we have today. However, we'll still have those reduced amount of stops in those locations, and still looking at ways that we can still make it more reliable in those segments. So last year we went through a process, and Dan was a part of this. I think one of our events at the Franklin Library last year, really getting out in the community to see what these stations could look like. We went through several different exercises, like what what celebrity could resonate with your neighborhood? I don't know if you remember your answer or not, but what colors, different things that, you know, what is your area known for, and those sort of things which you'll have documented. But we also went through an exercise with a series of images like from around the country of, you know, this is what we want to see at these stations. This looks more like my neighborhood. We don't want to see something like this. So it's very helpful in informing ultimately what our station designs are currently look like. So on the next slide here, these are some of the priorities that we heard. You know, prioritizing safety, respecting the community character. And it's really looking at balance between, you know, we want people to recognize that these are CODA, but also be sensitive to that, you know, we have 17 station locations on this corridor, but we'll also have, you know, stations on other corridors. So having a way that the community can really feel proud of these stations, that, you know, you recognize you're in the hilltop area, for example. On the next slide, you can see, so this, you know, this is different than what we have today. So we're looking at the station concept instead of just a bus stop. You know, a canopy to protect from the elements for people waiting. You have real-time displays so you can know when the next bus is arriving. The level boarding, some of the stations having the bike lane and bike infrastructure behind the station, so you reduce the conflict between the bike and the buses. Having you know, wayfinding and pylons incorporated. And then you can see somebody paying for fare as well. So having activity occur at the stations themselves. The middle image represents community design inspired wall. So this could be, you know, where we work with the community to figure out what type of image, you know, represents their community. So I think on here is like a bison. So this could be potentially out, you know, closer in Prairie Township, closer to the Derby. So something like that to really make these stations recognizable in the community. And you can just go to the next slide. So shows just like a different image. So this this is just a you know, bird's eye view of that center station. So this station would represent two different directions of travel. So we only need one station, so it saves costs and also reduces space that we need. And on the next slide, you can kind of see what this looks like. Highlighting some of the additional elements outside the station themselves. So, you know, protecting the bike lanes, making sure that we have the safe bike infrastructure. You know, focusing on the crosswalks to make sure that people can get safely to these stations, incorporating the landscape around there to you know, make it, you know, a great walkable environment, and also just looking at how people can access these stations in a safe manner. And on the next slide, and some of these stations we're identifying as mobility hubs. So we know that I think 94% of people walk to get to transit. But also there's people that bike as well, and with scooters. So looking at having you know, bike share and other mobility devices to finding locations near the station so people can get there in different ways. And this is just another concept. So one was linear, one was a plaza, just depending on how much space we have. And then just a different view, you know, with the middle transit dedicated area, the bike lanes, protected bike lanes, looking at the sidewalks. And really another thing is looking at the development patterns to look at how we can grow. So looking at having, instead of having to see a parking in the front, you know, working with the zoning code, right? Which West Broad is identified as one of the key corridors for this growth. But looking at how we grow in our communities and building it up to make it just a much more walkable environment. So with the project timeline, you know, we started at a very high level of, you know, what the alignment is, where will this go, what the station locations are. Right now, we're about the 45% design milestone, which really means, you know, now we're getting into more of the details about what modifications and changes needed to happen within our street. We on the next slide, you can see our timeline. So this is a multi-year, multi-step process. So we started, you know, back in 2021, the planning stages. And the reason that this timeline is so long is we're working within the Federal Transit Administration's is a grant program where we can receive a large amount of funding for a project like this. In order to do that, we have to follow, you know, NEPA requirements, several other things that I won't get into today. But, again, we plan to hit that 60% milestone by the end of the year. Complete design, in 2024, and then, begin construction in the 2025. Based on the timeline, we would hope to begin service in the, early 2028 timeframe. And then the next slide, if you go to the next one real quick. So, I know I'm about 15 minutes in, so I will direct you to the Linkhouse website. There's tons of information and resources on there. And sign up for our newsletter. But really, we're always open to suggestions on how we can get the word out. I think it has been too long since I've been here to provide updates. And I want to make sure that, if this is the great forum to get the word out to the area commission, then we can schedule these on a more frequent basis as we start to get into more details. But I'm always open to suggestions. Mindy's here from our engagement team. We're always looking at creative ways to really get the word out and get people engaged in this project as well as Linkhouse as a whole. If you can just go to the next slide. Okay, so we can certainly open to any questions if there's time.
Yeah, sure.
I have one quick question, Zach, and I just want to say, I love that Euclid Avenue corridor in Cleveland. It changed that whole all the neighborhoods in between, Cleveland Heights and downtown, My question is, now that we've seen that there's been a demand in Columbus to get rid of some of the surface parking downtown, will some of that be planned into this in the neighborhoods? Because as I think about this and where we are, we have 70 that crosses and 270 at the other end. And just imagining that much less traffic possibly being on the highway and possibly parking in parts of either our neighborhood or lots that would be dedicated to that. I'm curious to hear.
Yeah, so in terms of I know there's some on-street parking today. And I think we're kind of hitting at that spot in the design process about, are there available parcels where you can have, parking rides or business district lots and, that sort of things. Because people could be traveling with their car to the corridor and then riding it into downtown is certainly an opportunity.
And I ask it on the heels of having just done the zoning Columbus survey, where they show you these models of what could be in your community, but none of them had surface parking or parking lots as part of the building structure. So I thought this would be a perfect time to ask that question, considering we're 50%.
Right, and I guess I would say, in the near term have surface lots, but in the long term, looking to, do those need to be structured, maximize that space. So, it's definitely a conversation along with zoning and the project, but I don't know, Corey, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was just gonna add that we definitely want to be working very collaboratively with CODA in the design process to make sure that the parking needs of the community are met at the same time that we're designing the transportation needs. And they're really one and the same. And so as we get further into the design, those are the kind of things that we want to talk more about, how parking looks like on the corridor.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this update. I'm really excited for this. I'm one of these people who wish it was already implemented. I never had to touch a car again.
Yeah.
But I'd like to ask what you are hearing, maybe politically, because in 2024, in 1 year from now, when this ballot initiative is up, I'd like to see it approved, and funding allocated for it and public support behind it. Are you finding any pushback in any communities, or is there support broadly through it? Or is there any chance that the ballot initiative is?
So as a public employee, I can't probably answer that the way I could answer it. If you're talking, are you asking the project specifically or?
Well, yeah, just when you're in meetings like this, is anyone against it?
It's a long project, right? So I would, if you want to answer this is, until there's construction in the roadway, sometimes people don't care about it. There has been, we did a couple months ago, we did some business outreach and canvassing along the 9 miles, try to go door to door to just really get the word out. There's still a lot of work to do. I think we're going to be sending out a business survey in the very near future, try to get some sentiment about how the businesses, if they're even aware of the project, and if they are, hot or cold. So it's a work in progress. I think, at least at the area commission level, it's been very positive so far. I think people are like you chomping at the bit, long overdue. Let's get it built, yesterday. But unfortunately, these large projects take some time.
Thank you.
I have two questions. First of all, we have a lot of history showing that paint is not an effective barrier for cars. So can you talk a little bit about, what kind of creative infrastructure we're looking at that is actually going to create those separated bike lanes, is actually going to create that dedicated bus lane, so the cars are not inevitably just hopping over for a faster route? If you can start there, and then I'll have a second question.
Okay. In terms of, I guess, let me talk about the easier one. Right now, the city is very interested in having a protected bike infrastructure. We know what it's like today. Speed limit is 35 miles per hour. People go 50 miles per hour, even though it's not safe. So exploring, what we can do within the right of way to be more creative and having that physical separation, as opposed to just paint, right? The bus lane, since that is new concept, we don't really have it. I get still ongoing conversation about, I don't know if we'll be able to do a physical separation in terms of like a guideway, but if not, then how is it being enforced? And if it's not enforced, then people will use it, not in its intended use. So I guess it's a work in progress, and we're always open to suggestions, but yeah, still trying to figure out how, in New York, I think they enforce the lanes with cameras on the buses, and I'm not sure if that's legal in Ohio, in this state, but maybe something we explore, because that would be very efficient and effective if we could, do that.
Well, you said you're open to suggestions. My suggestion is metal and concrete bollards, lots of them and close together. I don't want to see cars parked in these bike lanes. Like, we talk about dedicated bike lanes, we talk about wanting other ways for people to get around. Like, that's what it's gonna take. My second question is, we've had a lot of projects proposed on Hilltop that then get kind of massively pushed along in terms of timeline. Blueprint right now is having a lot of trouble getting up and running due to easements. Do you foresee anything in that regard? Do we look like we're pretty well going to stick to this schedule? And then can you describe maybe a little bit, like, what is West Broad going to look like in that 4 to 5 year construction period?
Yes. So I guess I do want to, back to the question about the Linkus initiative, that is an important factor to keep this project moving forward. With that timeline that I showed, it's really dependent on that. That's one, I guess, factor in the timeline. The other factor is working with the federal government in this grant program, because right now we just submitted our rating request through that program, and right now we're in our financial plan. It's $150 million which is a good chunk of this project that is needed for that. And working with trying to get this project rated, we're on the right path, but there's a lot of steps along the way that need to happen in order for this to go on schedule. Was that the second part?
What is West Broad? What can folks anticipate West Broad looking like during that construction phase?
Yeah,
just fully closed, it's been segmented.
That's a great question. We're not at that point in the project yet. Since it is 9 miles, I foresee it being pockets here and there, not like we're closing down 9 miles at once. And we do have a couple of years for that to be phased in. And also we want to coordinate with other projects or any other city projects to make sure that we're not completing construction and then again, we're coming back. So trying to coordinate that has been working with ODOT as well. I know ODOT's doing a project right now in West Broad. Unfortunately, that already went through before our design is complete, but looking at making sure we can sync up efforts like that.
Thank you.
I was going to share what a low-tech solution that I witnessed in Cleveland riding the Helpline is that when a car got into the bus-only lane, the bus driver was laying on the horn on that thing, and the car very quickly got out of there. So I'm with you. I think it's better enforcement, but at the same time, I saw firsthand that just laying on the horn for the bus was a pretty effective deterrent for cars to want to go there.
Yeah, I think there will have to be some type of public education campaign, because this is,
Just quickly regarding the public education campaign, that's gonna have to be very deep and very wide, right? And very often. Just so folks, some information, it's gonna have to happen quite often. And explain the why and how it's gonna benefit, but you know all that, right? But let the public know, because 9 miles is a lot of miles, and I'm glad it's gonna be segmented, hopefully. And, cause there's been a lot of changes on the hilltop, a lot of construction, installing of things and all that, so. Yeah, education is key.
absolutely.
Is there any more public comment, like meetings that you guys are gonna be having when it comes to like rounding out the designs or concepts? Or are you guys gonna come back with like an 80%? Here's our 80%. What do you want us to change? We'll address the next 20%, and then here's the full rollout.
So right now, we're trying to steer away from the holiday time. So this round of area commission meetings, right now we have a team over in Franklinton right now at the same time, and tomorrow we're out in Westland, but that being said, our website's always open for any type of, I think it's info@linkuscolumbus.com. So always open to anytime, any comments about the project specifically or Linkus initiative. Those are tracked very frequently. In terms of the project and more formal engagement, we are, like I said, we're getting that 60% milestone by the end of the year. I would anticipate in Q1 of next year having some more formalized engagement opportunities. And also maybe less technical. We've been out at different tabling sessions getting feedback. So again, if there's any events that are in particular to this organization, or you have other organizations, always willing to meet out people and share updates and let them know about the project.
One other thing to mention is we have a newsletter that we send out on a pretty regular basis. So if you just go to linkuscolumbus.com, that gives you the ability to be able to sign up for that. So I really encourage you to do that as well.
So there's a couple questions.
Just maybe follow up on is there an emergency announcement passed that is a contingency?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah.
He was asking that if the ballot measure passes, is there a way to move the project forward? At this point,
Is there contingency if the ballot initiative fails?
right. I think there's ongoing conversations with all the Linkus partners about trying to make it work. We are also focusing, there's a couple other corridors in design too, but West Broad is really leading the charge right now in the design work and in that grant process. So we have to regroup and figure out, how to move forward again.
Can I share one other thing? We're also pursuing, in addition to the capital investment grants from the Federal Transit Administration, we're also pursuing other federal grants to fund the West Broad Street corridor. And so there are 2 grants that we pursued recently. We should know in a couple months, but one is the Neighborhood Access and Equity Grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation. There's kind of 2 parts to that. One is a capital construction piece. That's about a $40-some million act that we made from the federal government. And then the other one is a Neighborhood Partnerships Challenge Grant. And that's about a $70-some million act that we made. Because overall, the West Broad Street project is about $340 million. So it's pretty big. That being said, I think there's, I don't want to speak for CODA on this, but I think there's a high likelihood that we will be able to pursue getting a West Broad Street project done, whether or not the ballot issue passes. That being said, all of the other things that are part of Linkus, I think, are in a really challenging spot. And so for us, if we're able to get that neighborhood access and equity grant, I think I would put money on that we're going to be able to figure out a way to do West Broad Street. That being said, we'll see what happens moving forward.
And I'll let Rick have the final question if that's okay.
Is this upcoming ballot initiative for funding Linksys, is that just to fund Linksys or is that the CODA levy?
Yeah, so, actually, explain a little bit. So right now, CODA is funded with a 0.5% sales tax. This ballot initiative would, look to make it 1% sales tax, which is similar to, I think Cleveland's 1% right now, Hamilton County and Cincinnati is 28%. So really that looking on, be on par with them. That 0.5% sales tax would, there's several different projects, West Broad being one of them. But there's also some other elements, including a bucket for transit supportive infrastructure, which really means looking at closing some of our sidewalk gaps that we have in our city, and also looking at bike infrastructure. Did I answer your question or did I not?
Is this thing that we're gonna be voting on standing alone, or will there be several ballot issues for CODA at the same time?
It would just be one.
Okay,
Yeah.
and is it gonna be titled Linksys for West Broad, or is it gonna
No.
be titled CODA?
I don't think the ballot language has been finalized at this point.
I'm less interested in the ballot language and more interested in the marketing language.
It's gonna be CODA. It's what you're thinking. It'll be combined with multiple.
Okay.
Thank you.
Because of the facility, it's required.
It's a CODA, okay, good. Because sometimes people look for a reason to vote no, believe it or not.
I think what I would say is, I think that is a component of the overall CODA transportation strategy. And so this is, and it's not, you know, as we talked before, this is a really important, a hugely important piece of this is the transit piece. But it's also the transit support piece. So of that 0.5% that's being proposed increase, 27.5% is dedicated to sidewalks, bikeways, and trails. What we envision is that about a minimum of about $60 million a year for sidewalk, bikeways, trails, and students better connect people to transit, as well as to create the truly walkable communities that we've all said that we wanted over these last many years. And so, you know, we're really excited about it. And the city of Columbus is really excited to work with CODA and our other partners to support the effort.
And this extends out to East Broad as well, or the east side. It's on Main Street though. And then there's the Northwest corridor. And so we're one little part of a larger initiative, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just, you're not just talking West Broad, because the east side people will go with us.
The other part of this is by the end of this year, we will probably be in a position to talk about where the future fourth and fifth corridors will be. They would be on a longer trajectory of being up to whatever those. And we think it's important to provide a comprehensive vision for the community of where we want transportation to go in the community, as well as where we want transportation to go. That's where we want our current development to happen. We want our current job in housing growth to happen along these key corridors so that we're not getting in the middle of neighborhoods and creating density. If you want to create density and greater units and things on Broad Street, it's built to that, not our neighborhood streets.
Thank you for the questions. We do have one online question. I'd like to finish up with that to make sure that folks watching get an opportunity to ask questions. So what's the question?
Will BRT be the only option on West Broad, or will regular buses also continue to operate?
As of now, right, we do have some underline service on some of the stretches of Broad. We do plan to still have underline service servicing existing stops. The frequency would be less than today, so probably like once an hour, just to provide that coverage for those areas that are near stations.
So I really appreciate your presentation, the update. I know you waited patiently to get in front of us. I really appreciate you doing this. We never have enough time to have these discussions, right? I mean, I said 15 minutes and we're well over 35. So, want to continue to talk about what that looks like moving into next year. You're gonna hear from reports from some of our committees. I think it is valuable. It's not the full commission, but I think that we do some of our committee meetings, make sure we can blast that out to everybody that would be here tonight. Have it here at the library throughout the month, get a real opportunity to have, larger discussion about this, but
Absolutely.
all right, I got a thumbs up, so really appreciate it, because I've got about 5 questions. We're gonna move on, so thank you so much. Thank you. All right, so the reports of officers, we just get an opportunity. I'm just gonna have a couple of announcements type things. As you know, the zoning survey was, you could take that online or use the QR code. The next meeting of the Zoning Columbus Advisory Committee is on December 6th. It's a Wednesday at 4 p.m. It's held at 141 North Front Street. Those meetings are open to the public. I know there's been some of our neighbors that have actually come to those. I'm continue to sit on the advisory committee for that group. It's a 3-year project. We're still in kind of year 1, I would say. So lots more to be kind of developed over the next couple of years. I'm going to be setting up a meeting. I think I can do this all DC, right? Have a meeting. We use Constant Contact to send out the agendas for these meetings. And I need to just do a training with everybody on how to use the Constant Contact, give everybody the usernames and passwords and do all that. I'm just going to set up a Zoom meeting or something. I'll just do something virtual just to train everybody on how to use our Constant Contact website. So look for that in the next couple of weeks. Maybe I'll do a couple, some Monday night or Tuesday night or something like that. If that's allowable. We can stream it.
If you have a quorum, then that's not allowable.
Okay.
You have to do it in person.
I don't need much.
Yeah.
Others.
So if I just say, let's tag it onto a committee meeting that we're having, I could just train everybody on how to do a committee meeting. That'd be good. Okay. Anybody that wants to. Okay, perfect. It's just an opportunity to get messages out to our email distribution list, which is nearing about 250 email addresses. Just an opportunity, another way to communicate. So, I do want to let you know that John, the manager here at the library, has given us a small storage cabinet here at the library. So there is the opportunity to store things here, for whatever that may be. Meeting supplies, we talked about, do we eventually store the meeting owl there? It'll all be locked up. But want to make sure commissioners know we do have a storage cabinet here and let the community members know if there's an opportunity, for us to share resources or whatever, then we could certainly do that. Let's see, Songs on Sullivan, really wanted to make a quick announcement. I just got some updates about that. There will be another Songs on Sullivan this year. It's scheduled to happen on a Saturday this year, December 16th from 4:30 to 6 at the new Lower Lights Preschool at 2323 Sullivan Avenue.
Location may change.
Location may change, Ashley says in the back, so maybe the source isn't good. So you want to help me with anything? The location may change, the date and times will not.
Pretty sure.
All right.
More to come.
More to come about Songs on Sullivan. So there's a planning meeting, if anybody's interested, on November 21st, that may change also. It's at 4 o'clock. It's going to be a Zoom meeting. If you would like to participate in planning the event, there's an opportunity to do that virtually on November 21st. There are confirmed partners for this year's Songs on Sullivan. So the Columbus Metropolitan Library, Formation Studios, Graphic Designs, Franklinton Arts District, Franklin Board of Trade, Franklinton Development Association, the Hilltops Art Collective, the Hilltops Rise CDC, the Refuge, We Amplify Voices. Got a call from Melissa Green today asking if the Greater Hilltop Area Commission would want to sign on as a confirmed partner for this year's Songs on Sullivan. So I'm gonna never know procedurally how to do this stuff, but I'd like to put it up for a vote. We would say we are confirming our to be a partner that would use our logo on any kind of marketing flyers, and that there would be somewhat of an expectation that we would help plan and participate, right? So I got some details about it, but anything you would add, Avery? chairs over here that I'm missing or? I'm not angry, but actually, sorry. You put a mic. Sorry, Ashley.
Let us know if you want to help.
Okay, so I'm just gonna put a motion forward that the Greater Hilltop Area Commission would be partnering with this year's Songs on Sullivan. The Franklinton Area Commission is being asked for the same thing this evening at their meeting, and so I'd like to put a motion forward that we do confirm partnering on this event.
Second.
Thank you, Leah, for seconding. So just, let's do a voice vote. Everybody in favor of doing that? Aye. Anybody opposed? Need to abstain? Right. We are confirming we're in partners for this year. Those are my, announcements.
So I just have one. I attended one of the committee meetings, last month. And, it was the safety committee, and so there were conversation, and there has been other conversation throughout the year regarding the, Greater Hilltop Area Commission to hold some type of summit or forum, because we get lots of information. And it would be great to have it all in one space. And so, there's gonna be some planning for that. And I've talked to some of the current chairs, so they are aware of it. And I would like to open it up to our residents, and organizations in the Hilltop. So I see some of my, folks from Hilltop Arts Collective. They knew it was coming. And I would like for them to, be a part of it as well. With the forum to provide information to our residents and resources and services, for that event. Thinking about next spring, this coming spring. And so the planning will come on underway. We're gonna have some city, officials there and Franklin County, officials there. I've already talked to them. So just keep an eye out for that, and committee chairs know that, I'm gonna be leaning on you all, also to participate in that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Claire. Honor Secretary, anything, Joe?
A year and attendance report will come after the December meeting.
Great, thank you. And our treasurer, Josh? Nothing for this evening? No.
Because the city is taking over, dealing with all the, finance stuff, so reimbursements and all that, so.
So the account we don't have an account. We don't have any money in the account. So, there's $300 there.
No, you have your full funding for this coming year.
You don't have a bank account anymore.
Yeah, you just don't have a bank account.
Right, so.
Let me ask this, because, Leah stepped out, but she has some receipts from the, mentioned this reimbursement. Did she just contact the OBC? Okay, perfect. That's what I told her.
Yeah, you have.
Just wanted to
you have your
check.
full funding.
Yeah, so this is very procedural, Dave, in OBC. So like we in our bylaws say we're gonna do a treasury report at least quarterly. So typically we would say, here's the balance of funds that we received, here's the balance in our account. This is kind of how we've been spending the money. So just procedurally, we know we have the funds, but then how do we just report on that? We'll just
Yeah, I
have
think,
to-
OBC, we're getting used to this too. So I think OBC can look at that for you and
Yep.
either pass it to your treasurer or just tell you we can look at your balances, and tell you what is remaining and what has been spent.
Yeah.
But your $2,500 is available for whatever you guys want to do. It's just for the moment, we have to go through our liaison, and as we work through this process, we hope that we can give that back to you, because these guys frankly don't want to do it.
Sure.
But yeah. Through this budget year, that's gonna be the way it goes. You
Okay.
Just give it to OBC, she'll get your, you'll make your purchases, get your reimbursements, until the next, budget cycle, which we hope to have something new in place.
Okay, so Leah has some receipts, you can give those to OBC tonight. We have $2,500 in an account that the city's holding for us. If anybody was wondering what y'all talking about with this money, each area commission gets $2,500 a year to spend on a budgeted, approved budget from each commission that goes from May first of each year until April 30th the following year. So our budget our account has been funded. It's just not in the bank account that we typically would report on. So thank you. All right, so moving on to the report of our committees, we are behind schedule, but I think this will go pretty quickly tonight. If you've never been to a meeting before, you're watching online, we do have active committees that meet throughout the month. You can go to our website. There's a calendar there at any time. So if you're interested in Human Resources and Education Committee, for example, you'll see when the next scheduled meeting is. Typically, they're held here at the library, some other local establishment here in the greater Hilltop. So our zoning chairperson, Rachel Winning, is off this evening on a trip. So, so Leia's going to present for us tonight our applicants. There are two applicants on the second page of the agenda. If it's okay, we'll start with the Graphics Commission application. That is.
Microphone work.
This one? Sure.
I do not have all of the information in front of me, so I'm gonna largely let the applicants speak to themselves. But first up, we have 3464 Sullivan Avenue. It's GC 23-037. As Dan said, this is a graphic variance related to the sign as pointed at here, essentially to allow it to remain as is. So do we have the applicant? You wanted to step up to the podium and use the microphone and just give us a quick rundown of what you're applying for. We did vote this out of zoning and committee unanimously.
So this is a sign that has existed in that location since at least 2007. We know that because on Google Maps you can crawl back in time until the very first edition when they had a truck go past it. Unfortunately, we don't know when before that it was put in. What we do know is that it was put in without a permit. And that has been sort of a ticking time bomb. As far as we know, nobody's ever noticed it or said anything about it until the station decided to change over from Marathon to Sunoco this year. At that point, you know, we applied for a permit to reface it to Sunoco, and we have been unable to get that so far due to the sign being put in without a permit in the first place, somewhere around 20 years ago. So there are, in order for that sign to become legal, there are three issues with the zoning code that we would need to get a variance to. One is that sign is 2.5 feet closer to the road than signage is currently allowed to be at that location. It's the closest edge of the sign is 12.5 feet from the right of way. It should be 15 feet back. It is true, if you look up and down the road, this is by no means the closest side of the road. So my understanding is that up and down the road, most of the signs are currently non-conforming because the code has gotten stricter over time. So that's one issue the sign has. The second issue is that technically speaking, it should be a monument sign. And that's also a recent change to the zoning code. Now, if you look at where the sign is located right now, if we were to replace that sign with a monument sign, we would have to put some form of bollard or something in front of it. And at that point, you can't see the prices. Now the grassy area there is almost entirely not part of the property that this gas station owns. So we really couldn't put signage in there. It would have to be in the parking lot. So we think, given that the sign has to be on somewhere on the asphalt, sticking with the existing pole would be better from a traffic perspective than moving to monument. So we're asking for the height variance to allow it to stay. And then as far as what's going to be on the sign, it is simply going to be a Sunoco version of what was there before as Marathon. And so that's the long and short of it. I'd be happy to take any questions or.
Do any commissioners have any questions?
So what is a monument sign?
Oh, sorry. A monument sign being a sign that is not up on a pole and is just fastened directly to the ground or appears to be fastened directly to the ground. And so the sign would be 6 feet tall or less, and there would be nothing keeping it up off the ground. Which, you know, I understand what a zoning code would want that for. It can look very nice to have a neighborhood set up that way. Unfortunately, there's a nice bunch of monument signs. Unfortunately, in this case, right up against a parking lot, I don't think it would be practical.
Any other commissioner or community questions, Joe?
Have you talked to the business that's next door where that parking lot is? And do they have any issues with the sign currently?
No, so as part of setting up the variance, there's a notification that goes out to all nearby businesses. I do know this will be a smaller sign than most of the businesses next door have. And as far as I know, there's never been, nobody has shown any interest, positive or negative, in this sign since as long as we know.
Any community questions? All right, seeing none, I would move to approve the variances for 3464 Sullivan Avenue.
Second.
Thank you. Can you do
All three together?
Yes,
Okay.
the application as written.
Approve and that would. Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna go moving from my left the same way we did roll. Commissioner Klein,
Yes.
I am a yes. How do I spell it? There you go. Commissioner Stryker,
Yes.
Maddox,
Yes.
you got it. Fagan,
Yes.
Page Frank,
Yes.
here's White.
Yes.
Yes.
Bruno,
Yes.
Paxton, and Malik is not here at the moment. So we'll wait for him to come back and get his last. Currently, it's gonna happen.
Great, so with the number required to pass, I believe when Rachel comes back, she'll be forwarding all the necessary documents to the city. The next steps will be with them.
Okay. Well, thank you all for your time.
Thank you. It was very helpful presentation.
Next up, give me one moment. We have BVA 23-112. This is 1701 Union Avenue. Unfortunately, my documents are not opening. If I'm recalling correctly, this is to build a single family house in the same footprint of an existing house that was on fire, I believe, and is no longer habitable, but I will let you go ahead and explain the rest. We have, the committee did vote to approve. We did ask for additional renderings and elevations. Those were sent over and have been disseminated to the committee. So thank you for sharing those with us. Go ahead.
This is one presentation.
Good evening. My name is Charles Peros. I'm the architect for Mr. Luis Pacheco, who's the owner of the property. He bought he purchased it in March as a distressed property. And as the commissioner said, it was the distress was it was under fire. It was fired, so it was fire damage, roof, etc. So that picture's quite old. It's a 0.045 acre lot that was platted in 1906, and the current zoning is R4, and but it's been determined as a non-conforming lot, and it's currently occupied by this little house, which is 607 feet. The garage sustained some fire damage, and so what the owner desire is to remove the existing roof and construct a second floor on top of the existing first floor footprint, resulting in a 2-story, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, single family home. We believe the established neighborhood is occupied by single family homes of early 20th century vernacular, and we believe increasing the size of the house will be compatible with the neighborhood context, and we'll be following the C2, P2 guidelines for traditional neighborhoods. As the commissioner mentioned, we did submit elevations to the zoning planners, and those were approved. That's not current.
Josh,
Very. That's current. And so I'll just read through. If you want to open up, can you open up the site plan? Possibly.
Yeah. It's just.
It's the one I'm looking for is the one that I forwarded. The Commissioner Lanning. Well, okay, so the site plan, the way the house sits on the site plan, it's going to front Union Street. And we're gonna put a sidewalk, we're gonna green it, and we're gonna put some street trees. So it's gonna be this section. But what's kind of cool is that Mr. Pacheco, through our discovery process, the adjacent lot, which is on the corner of Union and Helen, is actually owned by the city. And he's interested in purchasing that lot. So it's gonna almost like make that lot work better. And so we're probably gonna be back here again to put another house, a brand new house on that lot. So we'll actually have, there it is. So in the lower right-hand corner, this house and garage basically take up the entire lot. And so that's why we're here for the variances. And then the adjacent lot to the right, which is actually to the east, that is on the corner of, that's owned by the city, and it's a city land bank property. We're interested in purchasing that, building a single family home there as well. And then we'll connect that sidewalk all the way to Helen Street. So I mentioned what the program consisted of: 3-bedroom, 1 bath upstairs, the eating kitchen, mudroom, half bath on the ground floor. So it's kind of like a modern. We're updating this and becoming modern, and then the design, we're taking precedent from early 20th century residences in terms of scale, massing, simple gateable form. Everything's going to be updated to code, and then we're looking at using exterior materials with dimensional roof shingles, fabric siding, composite trim board, new windows, and we think that the materials are conducive to the existing neighborhood. There's an existing chimney which we haven't deemed whether it's structurally stable yet. We haven't done the assessment on the fire damage to that chimney. It wasn't really a working chimney for like a fireplace. It was just used as a flue. So we're kind of not sure if that's going to remain or not. And then we're looking at using passive sustainable strategies such as rainwater catchment, and maybe a potential optional green wall and daylighting and views. That's it.
Any commissioner question?
What were the variances again?
Yeah, so I'm gonna read down what was on the original request. If any of this has changed, please do let me know. Variance to permit reduction of the lot width from 50 feet to 33 feet. If I'm not mistaken, all, if not a majority, if not all of these are because of where the building existing is already placed. So that's number one. Variance to permit reduction of side yards percentage from 20% to 9%. Variance to reduce north property line required side yard from 3 feet to 0 feet. Variance to reduce building setback from 25 feet to 1 foot for the dwelling and 12 foot for the detached garage. And to reduce parking from 2 to 1 spaces. Variance to allow existing garage parking to be 9 feet by 17.5 feet. To reduce the 10-foot vision triangle to a 1 foot clear vision triangle at the northwest corner. That is the corner along the alley. And variance to reduce the existing garage setback from 3 to 2 feet from the south property line.
Yeah, as you mentioned, all of these variances are based on the existing conditions.
Any other commissioner questions? Joe?
Thank you. Same question I asked the previous applicant. We talked to nearby neighbors, residents, is anybody, or just what are their opinions if you talk to them?
Yeah, actually, when I was putting up the sign for the BZA, there was a neighbor who lived across the street. I didn't get his name, but it was he and his son, lived there for 63 years. And they're like, great, this thing used to be a drug house, we're glad someone's doing it.
Is the,
So,
for the commission,
They
is
live-
the white garage, sorry, is the white garage that's across the street from, is that the one that we approved for the demolition? Earlier this year,
Think so.
you recognize it? If you spin around, that white building that's center,
Familiar.
so familiar? But just to make sure that we have it placed in a, might not be.
that's not the garage.
No, I know that's not your garage.
Previous.
No.
We have,
Previous.
and so I'm also, just having looked at the street view here, one of the things, of course, is if we would be impeding anybody's, sight lines out of their existing homes. And it does not look like anybody is, facing that property directly. So nobody's gonna lose sunlight or anything like that if this new building comes up, or is that correct? There's no,
Yes.
I don't see like any home that's immediately facing it. And would be impeded by the expansion here.
Josh, can you pull up the elevation one more time? The rendering. So if I remember correctly, the speed is requiring that the sidewalk be put in along Union Avenue.
Yep.
If you do eventually secure the plot to the east, I would assume the city's also gonna require you to extend that sidewalk, so it's not just like a little disjointed. Great. Any other commissioner questions or community questions? Seeing none, I would move to approve the variances as listed in the application.
Second.
A second from Commissioner Kepler.
Okay, just like for roll call, I'd like to start with Commissioner Klein.
Yes.
I'm a yes.
Yes.
Maddox,
Yes.
Fagan,
Yes.
Face Fry,
Yes.
Yes.
Kepler,
Yes.
Bruno,
Yes.
Paxton.
Yes.
And one. Thank you.
And then I believe when Commissioner Wenning is back, she will be forwarding this on to the city, but if you don't see anything from her, in the next, I don't know when exactly she's back, but the next.
Couple days.
Okay. In the next week or so, reach back out to her or anyone else on the commission.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Good luck.
I do not know if we have what zoning applications we have potentially this month. I'm gonna make sure that Rachel sends something out on our our Facebook page around what zoning applications are potentially teed up for our zoning committee meeting, which will be next Tuesday. That's when it regularly would occur, right? Next Tuesday here at the library.
6 p.m. next Tuesday is November the 21st. Again, just keep an eye out on Facebook for any updates.
It's here for Josh. He just does a remarkable job. We'll make sure that we'll get an announcement about any applications that are ending that Rachel might have teed up for this agenda next Tuesday. Thank you, Leo. Appreciate it for your stepping in. So under our Community Relations Committee, we have co-chairs Kayla Davis and Josh Maddox. Do you have anything to report? And when's our next meeting this month?
Nothing to report for previous month. For this coming month, we'll be meeting on the 28th at 6:30 at the Design Refinery. And we'll be discussing the set up for the summit that was previously discussed earlier this meeting. Oh, yeah.
Great, thank you. I'm gonna hold off on our government and legislation committee report and kind of move that into new business, which will be here in just a few minutes, but human services and education, Joe Vardro, any report?
There's no meeting in October due to some scheduling conflicts. However, I'm very pleased that the OSU Encompass group, which was managing the Hilltop Resource Mapping Project, if that sounds familiar to anyone from 5 years ago, they're back in. I'm finally in touch with them again, and so we're working on an opportunity to get that information and be able to use it for like Esri, for example. And so I'm hoping to have more information by the end of the year. It's been a long trying to email and call them, and so they've responded.
Great.
Next meeting is next Wednesday, the 5th. No, it's not tomorrow. Oh, it is tomorrow because this is the second week. Yes, tomorrow, 6 p.m. here.
6 p.m. through the library. Okay, great. I forget sometimes if anybody has any questions for chairs or committee work, I mean, we're certainly open to that. Sped through a couple, but
You're gonna have a government meeting this.
I do not know yet.
Okay.
onto our committee that's our liquor permit review committee, Chairperson Andrew Stryker.
Just to remind everybody, the liquor permits feedback form is live on our website. There hasn't been a whole lot of feedback yet. And the liquor permit review committee will be meeting just a few minutes following the zoning committee meeting on the 19th. Excuse me, I'm on the wrong month. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Planning and Economic Development Committee, with co-chairs Simon Dallas and Victoria Klein.
So we did meet on 10/26 and we started discussing the capital improvement budget. We had some additional questions, so we reached out to some city officials. They will be attending our meeting, which has been moved due to Thanksgiving. It'll now be on 11:30, and it will be at 6 p.m. at the library.
That's great work that you are getting so far ahead of that capital budget request process. That's really fantastic. So thank you. Any questions for Victoria? Your public safety.
Sorry.
Oh.
So at that 11:30 meeting, we will also be discussing a land bank application. Which I want to say from memory was 168 Whitehall Avenue. We had heard the application a few months ago, but we hadn't officially voted. So we are hoping to vote at our November meeting.
Great, thank you. The Safety Committee met this month, and Malik.
Yes, we have a beautiful, this black and white does no justice to the beautiful door hanger we've made. So as a public safety committee, we've looked at a few ways we can engage communities, neighbors, and we think that this door hanger will be a great invitation and a welcome to the community. It's branded in our colors, it looks nice, and it has all the pertinent information you need. I want to thank Ms. Montana for all the work she did to make all of our words make sense and look pretty. We should have a sample here next month.
Wow.
Our meeting is scheduled for next Thursday, but we all know we're going to be eating turkey next Thursday. So I want to check in with my co-chair, see if we can change that date. And today was, I have 2 more days of a training that I'm looking to roll out connected to public safety in the Hilltop. It's called Professional Community Intervention Training Institute. They're working with Columbus around the community violence CVR program, which is the community violence reduction. They've asked if they could come speak at our next meeting. And it's an approach to community violence that is not just police, it's not just public safety, but it's resident driven and it needs residents to work. And so the role that residents play in this process is to be what they call the community moral voice. So as we have neighbors in our community who have chosen to choose a life of crime, what we do is make sure that the influencers in those circles, which is less than 1% of our population, but the influencers are given motivations and resources to not make the choices. I was at one of the meetings with Officer Brody, where we did what's called the custom notification. We had about 30 people from the city of Columbus at a church. It happened to be in Linden, and these men were told by the mayor was there, by Police Chief Bryant, she was there, that you have to make other choices or you will be looking at 360 months in a federal prison or prison. And so that night we had about 23 people take us up on the offer to no longer choose a life of crime and to lean into the resources. We have an 85% success rate. 85% of people who have started for the last, let's say, 8 months have stayed on the straight and narrow. And this is something I'd love to see become a part of the Hilltops public safety approach to engaging neighbors. So we have the door hanger, and then we'll engage those who need a little more than a door hanger in a different way, but collectively, I think we're hitting all the prongs of what it takes to make communities safe. So that's our report.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep.
Any questions from Malik? Hearing none, so on to our last committee here on the list is Recreation and Parks, our chairperson, James White. Do you know Mike?
Hello, so last month we did meet, we are revamping our audits that we performed this summer, just going over any updates or corrections that we need to do. We're gonna have those finalized and out by December 1st. We did 3 last month. We're gonna do another 4 this month. We're gonna meet this Saturday here at the library. We'll have printouts. We're gonna go over the ones that we have left on the list in more detail. Try to get what our thoughts and opinions are about the parks that we have left. Just try to get everything that we think should be happening in those parks kind of on paper and piggyback off of the work that Simon and Victoria are doing. We're also going to be attending the economic and planning meeting at the end of the month to really get on the forefront of capital improvement projects. My goal is to try to get $3 million back to the west side for our parks. I know it's a large figure, but we do have 20 parks in the Hilltop. They're all in need, and we did have a meeting with some city officials and some marketing people. The city has $1.7 million worth of grant funding that they're looking to spend within the next 12 to 24 months on 3 parks within the city. They have identified Hans Park as one of the 3 that they're going to be spending that grant money on. Well, we're going to have, they're hosting 2 meetings for Hans Park for community engagement. The first one is going to be the end of this month on the 28th. It's going to be from 5:30 to 7:30 at Glenwood Rec Center. And this is specifically for Hans Park Development Improvement Project. Again, the city has grant money that they're going to be spending on Hans Park improvements. They are trying to move this along quickly, and I'm trying to push this along quickly because the quicker we get a working development plan, the quicker we can access the bulk of the grant funds. The city has said they're trying to split it 3 ways, but if need be, if we have our plan together and ready to go before the other 2, we're most likely able to use more of that grant funding up front, whereas the other parks will dip into city funds to get their plans to the finish line. So again, the first community meeting is going to be this month, the 28th, 5:30 to 7:30 at Glenwood Rec Center. The next meeting will be on the 4th of January, same time, same location. And again, these are for community feedbacks for Hans Park. They are sending out mailers to everybody in the surrounding neighborhood. I want to say they were going to do up to
half a mile
around the whole entire park. This is kind of correlating with the police substation that's going off of Sullivan. That's literally at the end of the street. If anybody has any recommendations that they want to see in the park, please attend the meetings. Please let me know. Joe, myself, Josh, we're pretty adamant about getting
this same type of development and enthusiasm into the other parks that we've audited this year. I look forward to everybody's feedback. Again, we're gonna meet, the committee is gonna meet this Saturday here at the library, but please, if you're interested about Hans, please attend that meeting at the end of this month. And if you can't make that one, it's gonna be the 4th of January.
Any question?
It's probably unfair to ask you this question, James, but at the bottom of Glenwood Park, that trail they were using with heavy equipment for a while, they now have the rocks there and it looks like they put grass seed. Do you know what that is? Is that now a walking trail?
So the bottom of Glenwood, was funded for redevelopment, this path go around for about $500,000. They went in, cleared out the park. They are supposed to be implementing a grass walking path throughout the whole entire park. I haven't got any updates on how the progress is. I just know that, at the end of fall, they were doing both of the clearing out, but if you're seeing rocks, it's mostly to deter people from driving
through,
through and into the park now.
And
But it's a,
James, I can add to that. It's also restoration of the wetland that's down there, plus restoration of the stairwell, or at least
Yeah.
making the stairwell accessible again. And then again, getting visibility into the space without all the overgrown honeysuckle and invasives, so that it's a natural recreational space that's pretty unique to things around Columbus.
and do we know if like, it's been checked for like encampments or if it's regularly?
I mean, they've been down there cleaning it out.
That was the first phase.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's, Neil had been working on this, he was working on this like 6 years ago.
Okay.
And Jeffrey and others
Nice.
around, so, yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know if they're finished, but they have been making progress.
Great, that concludes our committee reports, and before we move on to business items, just thank you, everybody that, you know, serves on this commission, the work that you all are doing in these committees as volunteers. It's truly impressive, and I just want to thank you, and just really happy and proud that you're my neighbors. It's just amazing to be a part of this, so thank you. Moving on to, we don't have any unfinished business, but we do have some new business on the agenda tonight. So we held an election on October 7th, 2023. It was a Saturday, and it kind of, I don't know where to go flip over next, just kind of explaining why this is a business item, and then talk about what we're going to talk about.
Absolutely. So we held our annual election on October the 7th. It was the first Saturday of October from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. We had record turnout, at least in recent memory, about 215 people over 3 locations. I would like to thank the commissioners who volunteered their time to staff the polling stations. Thank you so much. We had one challenge the election. Candidates who take part in the election are able, for our bylaws, to challenge the results. We do not determine the results of that challenge. That gets turned over to the city and to our city attorney's office. They have issued a recommendation. We're going to talk about that in a minute. I will turn this over to Olabisi or David to give us more insight there. Just for a quick recap, and in this period, every year we have 4 open seats, and then we'll have 1 appointed. So we have 5 turnover seats happening every year. That appointment will happen a little bit later this year, and I will make a quick announcement about that once we have resolved this portion.
Hello again, everyone. Yeah, so we did just based on the results of what happened, and just some concerns based on the content. You know what? Let's try this again. Based on the concerns and that the election was contested, we did consult with the city attorney's office, and just based on the information that we gathered and shared, it was determined that it's up to you to discuss, but based on the city attorney's office's recommendations, the results can stand. It will be up to you to discuss and vote whether to ratify or not, but just there was no concern based on what the city attorney saw that would cause for a whole new election. But like I said, at the end of the day, it is up to you to discuss and vote, whether to certify those results and have them stand as presented.
Do you have any additional information to elaborate on the specific decision? Did they give you a written decision? Did they give you any context, anything else that we should be taking into consideration from the attorney's office?
No, there's no written decision, but, as you guys know, being under the umbrella of the city, you do get legal guidance from the city attorney's office. But just as Olabisi said, in the end, it's your decision. The city doesn't tell you to do this or not do this. We give you guidance from our city attorney's office. And you can choose to accept that guidance, or you can choose to do something else. And you know, I think the question is whether or not you're going to certify the election as it was voted on that day. There were some irregularities in the elections, which there are in many elections, including our presidential elections. There are irregularities, and the guidance from the city attorney's office for the irregularities did not warrant a second election. But again, that's up to you to discuss and vote. The city doesn't make the final decision here, because you're autonomous, and there's nothing in the city code that says the city can tell you that you need to have a re-election or anything like that. So, and most people think the city can tell area commissions what to do, but we really don't. We really just give you guidance on legal advice and technical assistance, and in the end, you guys make your own decisions. And that's the case with this issue.
Thank you. As a recap context.
Yeah, I think that's important.
The reason for the challenge, so ballots are made, we have 7 different versions of a ballot. Names are ordered randomly so that no ballot is the same. On the ballot, which I created on Google Chrome, I left off the E in one of our candidates' names, Terry Roof spelled with an E at the end. I left the E off. I don't know if that was an autocorrect that I missed. I don't know if that was an oversight on my part. I can only stack that up to human error. It was not caught. Those ballots were printed and they were used. I think that's just about the context. Any questions from commissioners' thoughts? Especially those who worked
Just
the
I
election.
think another additional piece of context is, or 2 pieces maybe. The ballots, joining Mike, I'm going to use my indoor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Outdoor boards.
Outdoor boards, yeah. So on the ballots, whether it be the person voting or the person working the poll, on some number of ballots, took a pen and wrote an E in. So I wrote the letter E to replace what was missing, right? So I think that that's some additional context about, why was that, how did that happen? Why was it allowed to happen, et cetera. And then any guidance we have about our elections are attached to our bylaws. So anything that kind of talks procedurally about what we do or how we do it can be found there,
So all of our election materials, the ballots, the sign-in sheets, those were all turned over to the Department of Neighborhoods to be reviewed. As far as I know, the attorney looked through those, looked at numbers, and made the recommendation that based on that, we would not need to hold another election, essentially. Is that, am I summarizing that correctly?
The city attorney over area commissions is Rob Tobias, and as far as I know, he didn't look at the materials. Olabisi and I met with him and told him the situation, and I think he's provided Dan and other guidance on what his feelings are about what happened, whether that rises to the level of having another election. Because I think what's in question with the commission tonight.
Do you have the final like vote count to see, like, I guess, like what, like how much each person received?
I do not have it in front of me. Somebody took a picture of it though. There were lots of pictures taken.
The question was, do we know the final vote? We do, just have to pull it up. We stream the results live on Facebook, and that video is on our Facebook page. If anybody would like to see the official count that happened here in this room at the library, as we reviewed each ballot and then wrote up the number of votes for each candidate on the wall. So all that was done here at the Great Hilltop Library that day. And then the results are as follows.
Yes, so the results I'm gonna try to do these in numerical order. With the highest number of votes, 133, excuse me, I'm looking at a photo of a whiteboard, so I think this is correct. With 133 votes, was Nick Bates. With 120 votes, was Dean Smith. With 111 votes, Jenny Kepler. And with 91 votes, Keith Neal. Those would be our presumed winners based on vote totals. After that, with 61 votes, we had Cornell with 56 votes, Kitchen, and with 41 votes, Ruth.
Leah, were there any duplicate last names? For example, was there a Ruth on the ballot that could be confused with no E, that could be confused with a Ruth with an E?
No, so there was only one candidate with the last name of Ruth and the first name of Terry. All of our other election materials, which again were created by me, did include the correctly spelled last name, as well as everything that was on our Facebook page
And the
and
minute.
linked on our website and in our minutes, including the bios, which are submitted by candidates themselves. So no.
So is there any conceivable way that somebody could have voted for the wrong person? Based, not in my determination, but.
I think that's ours to decide, right?
I think that's ours to decide tonight. So that is essentially what we are tasked with deciding is there a reasonable belief that the average voter could look at this ballot and believe that this is not the person who it is intended to be connected to?
I'd just like to just share a piece is, I will work one polling location all day, and there was a handout of all the candidates and their bios that, I made sure that everybody that voted had an opportunity to see or look at to make sure, did you understand, here's the list of candidates. Everybody's name was spelled correctly on that, and those bios seemed to be accurate on what was presented for review by anybody that was going to come to the election. So I wanted to share that too.
And I'll just add too, because the pronunciation with or without the E, in my mind, and I believe two people had made the leap that you can't assume that the pronunciation with or without the E isn't the same verb or word. I want to say that I had a discussion with somebody who was there, who was an attorney, and they had stated that it's not a legal precedent that just because there is a letter missing and it doesn't change the pronunciation of it, then there's a clear misinterpretation of who that person is. And that's what I came to the conclusion that day of why I didn't make any conclusion that the whole thing needed to be halted, rescheduled, and redone. Because I was at a polling location the whole entire day. Like Dan said, we all had bios that we were passing out, and at no point did anybody voting here at the library made the comment about, oh, this is misspelled this is spelled one way on the bio, but on the ballot it's spelled a different way. Are they the same person or not? I didn't have anybody bring that up to me, and I just can't make the leap of someone only receiving 41 votes saying that somebody didn't vote for me because the name was spelled wrong, or again, just trying to make the leap that the whole thing is in error.
Want to say something real quick?
Yes, Mr. Root is here today, if you'd like to summarize your side of things.
I'm not disputing the name. What I'm disputing is the printed ballots that were incorrect that you shouldn't have used. Then instead of printing new ballots, you just take a bulk way print and correct it. You phase the ballot before anybody was allowed to vote. Even if you guys held a new election, the results aren't going to change. They're not going to change. But my point is, elections have, need to have election integrity. So by you misspelling my name, it was almost like an insult. Michael, whether that was the intent or not, I honestly believe what you said, it was autocorrect. Because if you type in Ruth with an E, and it is Ruth, not Ruth, it's Ruth. The rest of my family is Ruth. I'm a Ruth. I say it differently. That's all I'm contesting is the ballots themselves. The ballots should have been double checked before they were printed to make sure that the names were correct. Every candidate. Now you probably think, oh, well, you wouldn't pay attention to somebody else's name because it's not your name. But if it was your name that was misspelled on it, you would immediately notice it. So I just feel that the ballots was the issue, not the election itself.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Yes.
In past years, we have had 2 co-chairs of this committee. We do not this year, so I did not have somebody double check that. That was potentially an error on my part. What we are deciding tonight is whether or not we want to accept the results of the election as they stand, with our presumed elected commissioners, which would be, as I stated earlier, Nick Bates, Dean Smith, Jenny Kepler, and Keith Neal. So, do we have any questions from the commission or from the community?
Just to be clear, the only misspelling was on the ballot, and it was correct on the bio that was at the location, but it was right on the website, it was right everywhere else.
Correct, yes, but all 3 locations were supplied with the same materials, so stack of ballots, a copy of the bios, and general commission information. Any other thoughts? I don't totally know how to proceed here. I'm gonna make a motion that we certify the election results as determined by the number outcome.
I do have something
Victoria, go ahead.
to say. I do believe that this incident will allow us to improve and to double check for next year. This is what I believe. And I honor that we have 1 chair, and it was a huge undertaking, so thank you so much for doing that. But I do believe that we can, for next year, ensure a couple other things. There's nothing wrong with improvement. There's an opportunity here, and I think we should grab a hold of it.
My term is over at the end of the year. Go ahead.
That's all I wanted.
Absolutely.
Right there, what she said.
My term is over at the end of the year. I've been running this election for the last 3 years. I'm more than happy to pass it along, and I look forward to answering any questions folks have about what that process looks like. There's always room for improvement. So I move to certify the election results as they stand.
Second.
Can we please do a roll call vote? Would you like to change my motion?
I just want to suggest if we were to vote to accept the results of the election, I mean, could we at least post an apology, like perhaps to our Facebook or something like that?
So we have not yet announced in any way who the winners are. We really didn't do any follow-up to the election at all because we have this outstanding challenge. So we can certainly put together a comprehensive
just to
community announcement.
What had happened,
Sure.
this happened, we apologize.
It could be a community announcement, I think, on the Facebook page.
Okay.
Happy to consult if anyone wants to. I'll write that. Do a full roll call vote?
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Do the same order. Commissioner Clark.
Yes.
I vote yes. Rick,
Yes.
Maddox,
Yes.
Bacon,
Yes.
H. Ryan,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Kepler,
Abstain.
thank you. Bruno,
Yes.
Paxton,
Yes.
and
Yes.
With that, I would like to formally congratulate our commissioners-elect. Thank you. I'd like to thank all of the candidates this is an undertaking, running and talking to neighbors and getting
Yes.
signatures. So thank you for running. We had 7 candidates running for 4 seats, which is about as good as we've ever done. So that is really great to hear. Please look out for additional information from the Department of Neighborhoods about paperwork that will need to be completed. And we look forward to having you on the commission next year.
Is it too early to just make an announcement about what would be our appointed seat?
I was gonna do that next, if I still have a minute. Okay. The appointed seat is a separate process, so every year, like I mentioned, we have 4 electeds and 1 appointed seat. For the appointed seat, you have to live, work, or own property within the greater Kentucky boundaries, so it's a little bit broader than just being required to live here. That appointment will be officially made at our January meeting, once our new commissioners have taken their seats. But we do prefer to start making those nominations at the December meeting. So that's gonna be coming up quick. I would urge all of the current commissioners, and all community members to consider, who you would like to nominate for this appointment. Again, they just have to be over the age of 18, live, work, or own property within the greater Hilltop boundaries. We would like to make those formal nominations in December. There will still be room for nominations in January, but ideally we'll have all of the nominations made in December so that those candidates can speak on their own behalf and commissioners can start to think about who they would like to be voting for. If anyone has any questions about that process, I'm happy to answer them. We will most likely be meeting at the end of November. It will be our last meeting of the year, so November the 28th, immediately following the community relations committee meeting. Please do start thinking about who you'd like to appoint. If you have community members who, really stand out, you need to start bringing those names forward, and just start spreading the word about this process.
And the term is?
Just like our elected members, it's a 3-year term, so they would take their seats following appointment, and go through the end of 2026.
Great. Thank you, Leah. Our next meeting is going to come up quickly. Our next full commission meeting is in 3 weeks. It'll be December 5th, 6:30 here at the Greater Hilltop Library. So I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn for this evening. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none. Thank you.